Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and Doomsday Clock, issue number 7. All right, this is a step up. I'm not going to say a huge step up, but this is a step up from everything that we got prior. Like issues that just didn't seem to really matter. But anyway, let's just talk about this issue, all right? And just forget about everything else for now. Let's talk about who actually made this issue first. So, Jeff Johns is the writer. Gary Frank is the illustrator. Brad Anderson is the colorist. Rob Lay did the lettering. What is this? Back Matter design, Amy Brockaway Metcalf, I think I did that right. Cover and variant cover by Gary Frank and Brad Anderson. Okay, awesome. And of course, Watchmen were created by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. So, Gary Frank, I think, deserves a lot of credit on this, the penciler, the illustrator, because, so I guess he was pencils and inks. He was able to convey a lot of emotion. For me, that's the most important thing in a comic book, is being able to convey emotion. And that usually means a lot of good facial details. Let's see. What basically happened in this comic book is that we're discovering something. We're discovering a thing. I know there's a lot of people talking about, oh man, like I got this from several of my readers, several of my subs who are like, hey man, check it out. Did you see the previews? Because it looks like a lot of people are saying that the reason why everything was changed is because Dr. Manhattan moved the, what do you call it, the lantern in some way and caused the, what's his name? Oh, for crying out loud, Alan Scott, caused Alan Scott to not actually be created. Okay, maybe. Maybe that's the main thing that happened. It's certainly one thing that happened. I don't know if that's the main thing that happened, because then we have to somehow tie Alan Scott into the Watchmen universe also. Like, why did all of this happen? Maybe this is the catalyst, all right? But otherwise, maybe this is just a further problematic thing, like a symptom, as opposed to the main catalyst. Either way, this was certainly something. So I like the idea that Alan Scott is being used in this. The first Green Lantern, the one Green Lantern that is actually different from all the other Green Lanterns. He's powered by magic as opposed to by science. If that is in fact Dr. Manhattan, it looks like it is. He's like disguised as a little moth. That could relate back to the whole Mothman thing that just happened recently. What was that, issue 4? I think it was. That was actually my favorite issue up until this issue, because it actually did something. I didn't go anywhere with the story as far as I'm concerned, but it was at least entertaining. So we see a whole bunch of other cool things. We're seeing the prophecies of the Green Lantern come into place. That was something that always bugged me. The 3 times that the lantern is supposed to flare, like, yeah, they never really fulfilled that. Or at least the fulfillment of the prophecy wasn't fulfilling to me. You get what I'm saying? It was always kind of like a little thing, and then afterwards, whatever happens, it just happens. Like it was meant to be a one-shot or something like that. Nah, it should have been something on a much grander scale. So awesome. I'm hoping that this issue actually causes some people, because I know there's a lot of people who are just rabid over these Doomsday Clock. I'm not rabid over the Doomsday Clock. I think I've made that pretty clear. I wanted to really enjoy it. I'm kind of enjoying it, but in this issue, like I said, it's a lot better. It's definitely a step in the right direction, but still some baggage, man. There's still some baggage. In the meantime, I'm hoping this issue does cause some people who are rabid Doomsday Clock fans, to go back and take a look at Alan Scott, because he is a very interesting character. They actually turned him gay at one point, which I thought was unnecessary? I don't know. I didn't actually read those issues, but I think it was in New 52 that they did that. Whatever. Hey man, if it makes the story better, I guess, fine, but anybody remember Iceman? So there was a big hullabaloo about that. Anyway, we get Saturn Girl in this. She's actually my favorite. Not that favorite. I can't remember the name. Like, wow, I'm doing really bad with names today. What the heck is it called? The Legionnaires. She's my favorite of the Legionnaires. Whatever the heck those were called again. I have the little ring. I have the stupid Thanagarian nth metal ring. But the point is, she's cool. She's a telepath. Something really wicked happens to her. I hope that it conveys the story better than what I'm getting so far. But also we have samurai in here. Does anybody remember the old Challenge of the Super Friends and all those old cartoons? They had the ethnically correct characters that were just ethnically horrible. We had Black Vulcan was one of them. He was a really cheap Hanna-Barbera ripoff of Black Lightning, and Tony Isabella talks about that a lot. He's like, yeah, they didn't want to pay me to have Black Lightning in there, so they just made Black Vulcan instead, which was essentially the same character, except, you know, not. So they didn't have to pay him. Wow, Hanna-Barbera, you will not be forgiven. Barbara Hanna. Anybody who knows what I'm talking about, you're laughing at that one. Go look up more on Tony Isabella. So, what happened? We also have Solaris. Like I said, I'm having a bad time with names today, guys. Solstice is her name. Solstice actually appeared in this, which was actually really cool. I'm wondering if I shouldn't have actually grabbed the physical copy of this book instead of just waiting for freaking Comixology, man. But a lot happened in this, a lot, and you have to really pay attention. Here's where I'm getting to my points. You have to pay attention to facial expressions. Yes, even of Bubastis, whatever the heck the name of that crazy psycho cat is called. If you don't read the ends of the books, you know, the Doomsday Clock always has the papers at the end that you have to transcribe and whatnot. And a lot of times you're reading through 3 pages worth of really fine print. And dude, my eyes just don't handle that very well in my older age at this point. So sometimes I'm just like, you know what, it's not worth it. But this was easy to read. And these actually, it wasn't just one little fine point that you're like, oh, I see a hint in here. In 3 pages of little tiny print, you find one little thing that actually matters. It's like, wow, how much did it take for you to freaking, But in this, it was actually big journal paper and 3 pages worth, and it was actually really good. The whole thing was important. It actually explained a lot about the return of this cat-like creature. That was actually really good. Plus, you know, you see it's actually it went through the exact same process that Dr. Manhattan went through, purposefully this time. So that's why it's able to track and actually attract. So track and attract Dr. Manhattan. That was pretty cool. That was interesting. I don't know if they'll be able to do that again. I don't know if they're going to want to do that again, but we'll see. Joker torturing, what's his face in here? The comedian was pretty interesting. I always kind of wanted to see these two together, and now that I have, it was kind of underwhelming, but it also wasn't really fair play. So little Mr. Terrific comment there. I'm hoping to see them actually go at it with each other in a very different way. Wouldn't it be cool if the comedian actually killed the Joker? Because I don't think anything here really has a whole lot of bearing, right? All of this has to be time shifted at some point or another. Mime and Marionette were pretty cool in here. You got to find out, this is probably the biggest reveal, is you got to see the biggest obvious reveal, I should say. You got to find out why Dr. Manhattan was so surprised when he saw her in one of those earlier issues. What was that, issue 3, I think it was? That was interesting. You got to find out what's up and what's up in the future. Read the comic book. I could spoil it for you, and it's not like the biggest spoiler, but when push comes to shove, I think you'd rather actually read it yourself instead of just me, like a jackass, just, what happened with that such and such? No, just go and read it yourself, all right? Go buy the book. This book is worth buying, in my opinion. Like I said, I may actually decide to buy it again. Batman. There's some things that happen here. First off, some silly things. What do you call it? We got to see his that wire that Marionette has is pretty wicked, man. I always thought that they were supposed to constantly make it that those spikes on Batman's arms were solid, like razors or something. No, they're apparently hollow, so that didn't do a lot for him. And he wound up almost getting his wrist. He probably got, what was it, the tibula and fibula? Am I wrong? Tibula and fibula, right? Tibula, fibula. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Shoot, could that actually be in the leg? No, I think it's this. Anyway, the point is, this part right here, like, I think he might have gotten it partially severed because he got jacked up. Batman screamed, and it was a very believable onomatopoeia scream. Wow, that was actually good. Like I said, emotions are conveyed very well in this. We're going to get to that with Batman in a moment, but we also see one of his ears gets cut off. You know, the bat ears, not his actual ear. It's no Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield moment here, but that gets cut off. And apparently they're filled with popsicle sticks. That was kind of interesting. Me personally, if I got the stupid ears, I'm making them solid like titanium, and I'm going to stab people with them if push comes to shove. That's just me, though, all right? What do you call it? Yeah, Mime and Marionette give Batman a run for his freaking money in this. Like, Batman gets jacked up. Joker with the flamethrower, I just saw that image as I'm scrolling through on Comixology. That was actually pretty cool. When Dr. Manhattan finally shows up, though, he turns Rorschach against Vate, which was pretty cool. Joker talking about put on some clothes was actually pretty funny, too. Here's the thing. I don't know if a lot of people noticed this. Maybe you guys did. I'm not trying to make judgments. What I'm saying is the conveyance of emotion was really important here. Batman says at one point, when he sees Dr. Manhattan, "I know who you are." Dr. Manhattan looks at Batman, and he's like, "Oh, shoot. Didn't realize you were going to be here." He doesn't say that. It's all through the drawing, all through the emotion on his face. And then he just kind of does one of those, remember how Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze, when he first appeared, he kept on doing that thing where he would do this and hellfire would appear around people and they'd be like, what kind of creepy trick is this, man? Walk through it. Watch what happens, jackass. In the meantime, that's kind of like what Dr. Manhattan does here. It's just like, and he makes a big line around a bunch of people, and he keeps the Joker and Batman out of that line. He just keeps the Watchmen-esque characters in this line, and he takes this platform out, and he starts having this conversation with Vate. Vate's like, "I need you to save the world." Dr. Manhattan's like, "No, I'm not going to." It's the typical thing that you would expect, really. I liked the way that the panels were designed, because you could see that like things were opening and then things were closing. They looked like Venetian blinds, and I dug that. That was really cool. The conversation, I'm not going to get into the conversation that they all had with each other, because that is its own beast. That's its own animal. You have to derive what you can out of this. Like, I'm just looking at this, and this was really, really well done. I was thoroughly impressed with this. Who actually just beat up on the, I forget. Who beat up on, yeah, I think it was Rorschach who beat up on the Joker. That was pretty cool. And Rorschach goes and changes, the fake Rorschach, not Rorschach, changes the mask a little bit. That's what we needed. I know this is going to sound really weird. That's what we actually needed in this comic book. To see this difference, because this not Rorschach character, I'm just like, a lot of these characters aren't really who they are, so who cares? Why am I supposed to be invested in this? It's a shame it took issue 7 to finally give me that. I think that this could have been done in issue 4. All right, I think that they could have not rushed this, but I know I say, you know, that's like what I say all the time with DC comic books. Let the comic book breathe. Well, in this particular case, dude, it's out of breath at this point. Okay, there's way too much breathing, and it sucks that I'm getting drawn in now, of all things. If this had to have been 12 issues, then so be it, but I don't feel like it needed to be. I almost feel like this shouldn't have been not even almost. At this point, I feel like this should not have at all been a 12-issue limited series. Maybe they should have made this into 2 issues. Obviously not, you know, 22 pages, 32 pages each. I'm talking like, here's the first trade, here's the second trade. Let's release it like that. Let's see what you like. Because I think that getting everything that we got in the first, and then the idea of what we were going to get in this issue would have been something. Also, maybe move 7 to 6 just for the sake of conversation. But this was a really good issue, and I'm worried about all the people who completely dropped off of this series, because all of a sudden it did get really good. And I've been just giving this a cursory glance, you know, up until issue number 6. This issue kind of changed things a lot, a whole lot. This is where the series should have been the whole time. I'm not exaggerating, the whole time. There are ways to explain stories. without it being too much or too little. All that got shoved into this issue. You're going to tell me that they couldn't have expanded this a little bit more and made some of these things happen a little bit earlier, found out what the cat actually was before, so that we know what it is that, so we're certain what Vate is actually trying to do this entire time. I'm pretty sure they could have done that. They could have given us a little bit more. The previous, yeah, there was a lot of action in the previous issue. But man, just story-wise, it went nowhere. All it was confusing questions, and it just killed me. It was killing me slowly, you know, like killing me. It was like a Fuji song. This is not even a step. This was like a kick down the door and jump through in a ninja pose, in the right direction. You know what I'm saying? And I appreciated that. I definitely did. It's a shame that it had to come down to, okay, here we go. We got to give them a punch, otherwise the series is going to die a death. And I don't often like to say die a death because it's a weird kind of saying, but in this case, no. It was going to die a death, a very specific death, like people just saying, F this. This was what the series needed. I think in many ways, I'm going to go on a ledge here, this is kind of what DC needed. All right? I'm still a little bit bothered that they did this without Alan Moore's say-so. I don't care if you own the property. There's right and there's wrong, you know? And most of what happens in corporate America, yes, including Warner Brothers and DC and Disney and Marvel, a lot of what people do is just a corporate cash grab. And there's a way to be human instead of just, yeah, but I think this will make a lot of money. But this is also this guy's work. And I know that there are certain comic book channels out there too who are actually for the most part good comic book channels. They're not, you know, scumbags who just go around ripping up comic books. No, they're actually for the most part good comic book reviewers and more than just reviews. But sometimes they like to make fun of Alan Moore. That's cute and all. Would you do that to his face? I have a high amount of respect for Alan Moore. Obviously, that would depreciate if he, you know, spit in my face or something like that. I'm not going to respect somebody who doesn't respect me. But I don't think the guy knows me at all. What I will say, though, is I genuinely respect what he does. I think that he's a genius. The man has done more for comics in the few comics, think about it, relatively few comics that he's done, than I'd say anybody else has ever done. All right? There's Stan Lee, there's Jack Kirby, there's things like that. Yes, there was the establishment, the actual making comic books, you know, popular, but making them something that adults could read and go, holy crap, this is a comic book? It takes people like a Neil Gaiman, it takes people like a Grant Morrison, and it really started with Alan Moore. My opinion. Making comic books relevant to anybody and their mother. That was Alan Moore. And while it did certainly happen before he did Watchmen, Watchmen was the thing that kind of like, you know. So I think that a more respectful thing to do would have been to just maybe wait until he was dead. I mean, seriously, this is just my opinion. This is my soapbox. I'm going to get off it now. But yeah, I think this is kind of what DC needed. There's still the idea of, here's Mr. Moore. It's still kind of not cool, man. Anyway, I'm done. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.